All right, this is a really interesting story. So, Massachusetts Democratic Committee met to vote on a resolution calling for the resignation of their party chair, Gus Bickford, for aiding and abetting an attack on Holyoke Mayor Alex Morse, who is gay, you'll recall. Morse ran against Richie Neal in a Democratic primary and was smeared for these alleged romantic relationships with adult students. Ultimately, there was an investigation conducted by the University of Massachusetts Amherst, found zero evidence of any inappropriate conduct.
So Ryan Grimm reports that the vote went downhill after a member used an anti-gay slur towards one of the members fighting for the resolution in order to remove this man. So joining us now to discuss this entire situation, D.C. Bureau Chief of The Intercept himself, Ryan Grimm. Ryan, what the hell is going on? There's a lot of moving parts. Yeah. Why is this even still a relevant discussion? It was a ridiculous story whenever it ran in the first place. So start at the beginning and just fill us in.
Right, the party just won't let this go, and UMass didn't want to let it go. So UMass, at the height of the campaign, put out a hotline saying, if you have ever had any uncomfortable interactions with Alex Morse, call us here. They got no allegations through that channel. They got no allegations through the media, and they had no allegations that were furthered to them through any other channel. Yet they still decided to launch an investigation into no allegations. Alex Morse declined to participate in the investigation and said, look, if you have an actual allegation from a person, then tell me what that allegation is, and I will be happy to participate in your investigation. But just a random kind of fishing expedition around my romantic life, no, I'm not participating. So the same day they put out a report that finds that there were no allegations, which they knew from the beginning, and so therefore they confirmed no allegations. The Cambridge City Democrats met to go over this resolution, which had been put forward, and this is how kind of the local Democratic politics works. A local ward had passed a resolution saying the state party aided and abetted a homophobic smear, and the party chair should resign as a result of that. And so the ward resolution then gets brought forward to the broader city party, and so they have this big public meeting over it. When the meeting starts, opponents of the resolution say, we have a substitute. Here's our substitute resolution. And the substitute basically is a pride flag. It says, we support the LGBTQ community, and we hope that many members of that community will run as Democratic candidates. One of those very vague resolutions that takes all the teeth out of the original one. And so when they're having a vote on this resolution that is affirming support for the LGBT community, when one of the advocates of the original resolution, who was the vice president of the ward that brought it forward, votes no on it, you hear from one of the board members him get called the F word. Mm. This is a guy who is in the practice of voting to support a resolution that claims to affirm the value of the LGBT community to Democrats at the same time that he's using a homophobic slur in a public meeting. Now, he later claimed he didn't know his mic was on, but I don't quite understand how that...
Not really a good excuse. You got the audio and played it on the Deconstructed podcast, which, by the way, everyone should subscribe to and listen to. Let's listen to a little bit of this roll call vote. And again, to set this up, and you set this up a little bit in the audio, they're going through, this is the roll call vote on the purely symbolic, meaningless pride flag resolution that the people who are actually committed to removing the homophobic chair are all voting against because it's completely teethless. Let's take a listen to that.
So then they do a roll call, and something startling happens, and there's a response from a board member when you vote.
Nancy Ryan, nay. Sorry. Donald Summerfield.
Nay.
Donald Summerfield, nay. Dan Totten.
Nay.
Dan Totten, nay. Megan Van Booskamp.
What I thought I heard.
So that beeped out part was the F word, and you can hear whoever's doing the roll call is kind of like taken aback. What? But I mean, Ryan, first of all, what has been the fallout from this? But also, I think one of the important points here is it kind of shows the hollowness of these purely symbolic maneuvers that the Democratic Party loves ultimately to engage in.
I've never seen a better example of the hollowness of this posturing, because they are quite literally in the process of affirming their support for the LGBT community while the guy is saying this. And you hear the woman say, "Did I just hear what I think I heard?" And apparently the chat kind of lit up with people saying, "Oh my God, what did we just hear?" And so it really does show that the purpose of the resolution was not to affirm support for the LGBT community, but it was what its opponents thought it was. It was to make sure that they don't do anything that actually addresses the real homophobia. And that was part of the entire agenda. And so Dan Totten, who was the subject of this smear, told me, and other people in the meeting said this, that, look, we should all be proud of ourselves for clapping back against this slur being uttered. And, kudos to us for being such enlightened liberals. But what we have to understand is that this was the logical extension of the entire argument that was being made. And so we can't, on the one hand, fail to take responsibility for the homophobia that we could have addressed that in the original resolution, while also celebrating ourselves for condemning this word. It's the equivalent of just putting a pride flag on your porch, but still propping up systems that perpetuate the homophobia and denying, like in this very meeting, denying that there was any homophobia around the entire assault on Alex Morse, as Jim Roosevelt, who's the party's lawyer and who's involved in the smear, said in that meeting that there wasn't a whiff of homophobia.
Oh, please. And
what a wild story.
It's such a crazy story. And and that's the key part, just for people to really remember, is that the Democratic Party was complicit in this complete smear, homophobic smear of Alex Morse, which ultimately really may have sank his campaign, because you're reporting, look, a lot of people were able to follow your reporting. The local press didn't cover the fact that this was all an orchestrated smear campaign nearly enough for voters to really take that in before primary day actually occurred. But also just update us on, because I thought this was outrageous too, the investigation that UMass performed and ultimately came up with, there's nothing here, but the kind of details that they decided to publish, to me, it was completely outrageous.
Just wild. It's like a 30-plus page report when they could have just put out a statement that said, out of an abundance of caution, we looked into whether or not Alex Morse had violated any university policy, and we found out that we did not. Like that, they can write that a little bit better if they want to, but that's all you needed to say. And Alex Morse is actually contemplating litigation over this. I don't know if he'll actually go forward with it, but they interviewed all of these different college Democrats, and they're just passing back all of these weird, irrelevant rumors. Like at one point, witness 1 says that witness 3 told him that witness 2 saw Alex Morse give him a look as he entered the room, but witness 2.5 wasn't sure if it was actually a look or if it was not a look. Several of the witnesses that they interviewed said that yes, they had DM'd with Alex Morse, but they felt that there was nothing unusual or inappropriate about the exchanges. But after they spoke to some other students who put forward some unsubstantiated rumors, then they started looking at the original conversations that they had with Alex through a different prism, and perhaps maybe there was something inappropriate. And the whole time you're reading this, like, how on earth is this published by a university and put together by a reputable law firm? This is absolutely nothing but college student gossiping back and forth. And again, there wasn't any actual allegation made by any specific person to investigate. It was just utterly bizarre.
Yeah. Well, this whole story has been so outrageous, and I really feel bad for Alex, who I don't know personally, but seems like such a nice and decent guy, that he's just been absolutely put through the ringer on this. Ryan, thank you for staying on top of the story. Really appreciate it.
Thanks, Ryan.
Yeah, thanks, guys.
Mm-hmm.
Coming up, host of the Humanist Report, Michael Figueredo, is going to join me to discuss the latest Dems to publicly oppose eliminating the filibuster. That's when Rising returns.